Good night, Marcia, Glenn, the
Good night, Marcia.
loyal opposition. It's good to be back.
Yes, good
um,
to have you.
to bring context to this matter, it is more than just free movement. Free movement further complicates the situation for national insurance. Now, um, from the time we had the 8% pay cut many years ago, there was a lot of downsizing and merging, whereby a number of companies subcontracted their work out, um, and therefore the self-employed role at national insurance increased, and therefore over the years it has increased.
Mm.
But I always remember at the on the platform of the um, Mrs. Thorne, who is over the Barbers Workers Union, when she was campaigning, the Prime Minister would have indicated that they were going to bring on some home health workers, um, home care workers, and they're going to pay them a stipend. Now, my understanding of a stipend is bus fare and lunch, but you were going to be paying these persons basically a salary to make them self-employed. During the period of the ASH program and thereafterwards, government sought to bring workers on and again determined, I said government brought them on and determined that they would be self-employed. Now, national insurance holds the right to determine who is self-employed from who is employed. And there are some basic tenets which are used to determine whether a person is employed or self-employed. That being, if the person has control over their hours of work,
Mm-hmm.
whether the tools are theirs, and whether the person is entitled, as it were, to vacation. There are other factors, but those are three of the main ones. But I said national insurance as a department, as an institution, holds the right to determine, and not government, not the prime minister has the right to. But
Well, can you
oh,
repeat for me it's the tools and go over the three
okay,
things?
yeah. In other words, if the building, in other words, if you're going into someone's building and the
Mm-hmm.
tools that you are using do not belong to you, they belong to an individual. If you have to say, if you are told what time to go to lunch, come to work, what time you have to leave, what time your break is, and whatever else, and if you're entitled to vacation, then you cannot be self-employed,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore government has sought and still continues to have persons employed with fancy language, contract of service, and so forth. But it meant that with government, um, with persons now being subcontracted um, as self-employed persons, it means that for those who are coming into the island, um, now, well, if you have a contract to provide a service to government,
Mm-hmm.
national insurance, part of the contract is that you pay contributions. You must pay contributions to get a contract to provide a service to government. We're not talking about a contract to do work, as it were. Yes, work, but a service also. It means that these persons who are coming in, they would hardly be employed by government. They would either be employed by a private entity or they will be self-employed. And therefore, these are some figures that will produce some interesting findings. Now, if a person is employed by someone, then it means if that person's salary is, say, $400 per week, then it means that um, the employee pays 11.25%, and therefore a total of 24.25% is paid by the employer. So you're looking at something like $97 per week that national insurance receives if the person is employed by an employer, $97 per week.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if that person is chooses, because national insurance does not determine how what earnings a person uses, as it were, to pay contributions on. So if that same individual is self-employed and chooses to pay contributions on the $400, national insurance is receiving $69 in contribution. So it's a difference between 69 and 97 per week.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But this is where it gets very interesting. Now, from 2024, self-employed persons are expected to pay contributions on a minimum of $1,200 per year. $1,200 per year. Now, when you take $1,200 per year and you calculate the earnings that the individual is paying contributions on, it's only $134 per week. Only $134 per week.
Mm.
That's the earnings that's going to be used for the purpose of that person receiving a benefit or a pension.
Pension.
So you're looking at a situation where the fund is receiving tremendously less by persons being made contract workers, and there's a tremendous amount of contract work being offered in Barbados by employers, by entities, we put as entities, and national insurance has not been able to be given the powers to ensure that um, whether these persons are employed or self-employed. And again, because the person determines now what he or she pays contributions on, and they're told that you must pay on $1,200 contributions per year, which works out $134 per week in earnings, and national users earnings for the purpose of payments, not contributions. You are seeing where we can have a lot of people in Barbados, once they put in at least 15 years earnings, they're gonna be getting the minimum contributory pension. The
Mm.
minimum contributory pension. They're not going to recognize that this $1,200 in contributions is not working out to say $400 per week in earnings, which should be used for the purpose of their pension. So as I speak, there are many persons who normally expect a reasonable pension are already getting the minimum contributory pension, which at present is $254 per week. So therefore, let's look at then if the individual who is working for $400 a week by 52, that is something like 20,800. 20,800. If they're employed, and national insurance will be receiving anything like $3,588 in contributions.
Right.
But if that person now only pays on the $134 rather than the 400 which that they're working for, they only getting $1,200. That's only getting $1,200.
Hold a
So the
minute.
scheme,
So $3,000 versus $1,200.
$1,200, yes.
Yeah. Wow.
So
Yeah.
already prior to, as it were, free movement, the national insurance scheme is taking in a lot less than is expected. Now, the 2022 actuarial report would have indicated that 1 out of 8 self-employed people in Barbados are actually paying contributions. 1 out of 8. So national insurance recognizing that they have to go after self-employed people, that legislation was passed in 2024, but only just recently, I think it's about 2 weeks ago, national insurance established a self-employed section. which is proof that they recognize that there's a shortfall in respect of the contributions coming into national insurance. Now, there are no audited reports for there are no audited reports for national insurance finances since I think 2014.
Oh my.
None. Yes, the reports have been sent up to be audited up, I think, 2024, based on what I would have received. So therefore, there are no actual figures that you can use to show the tremendous shortfall that national insurance is receiving. But the department is aware that on their balance sheet, there's a tremendous shortfall. And therefore, for the Prime Minister to say that for persons coming in, the scheme will be bolstered by those persons is far from the truth. It is far from the truth. Because I said from the beginning, those persons are not going to be employed by government, whereby they're going to be paid a fixed salary and be paying contributions at the rate whereby national insurance is collecting 24.25%. It's going to be up to those individuals, either as several people, to determine how much they're going to pay, and you can be guaranteed they're going to pay maybe on the minimum, or they just want to fulfill their obligations that they are paying contributions. Now, if they are working with entities, and as was shared earlier, I think in your program tonight, there can be those that can be taken advantage of by some employers in Barbados, whereby the minimum wage in their country is half what it is in Barbados.
Right.
So even though they are being exploited, they are still better off than in their country that they came from. You know what I'm saying? And obviously, they're going to displace maybe Barbadians. They may very well be displacing Barbadians. But the other factor that I find is going to be very interesting also is that if a person is employed, then you do not pay income tax on earnings of $25,000 or less. So as much as they're saying that BRA will benefit, they're not going to be treated different. They can be treated as persons in Barbados working, and therefore an income of less than $25,000 per year will not attract income tax. And therefore, there are a tremendous amount of persons who, by virtue of the fact they do not earn more than $25,000 in Barbados, I'm speaking of Barbadians, they are entitled to the 1,300. Yes, they're entitled to the 1,300. So for these persons that are coming in, once they are here and they are given the kind of residency that are being given, the question is, will they be entitled to the 1,300 too?
Wow.
So
That's a big question there. Oh my goodness, Mr. Strickland. That 1,300, that is what you what is it called? It's a benefit. I can't remember what it's called.
Yeah, because it is paid to individuals who have worked for less than $1,300, $25,000 within a year.
Within a year, they get.
Okay, I can't remember if it's but it's for a particular category of individuals. You want what I'm saying? And therefore, they're going to be entitled to this money also.
Tax credit. That's the word I was looking for, Carol. Tax credit.
Right. You tax credit. So you're looking at situation one, they'll be entitled to tax credit. Two, they can be choosing to pay contributions at the minimum to make sure they're entitled to a pension down the road. But what is the cost to Barbados? What is the cost to Barbados? Their children will be entitled to free education.
Hold a minute. You go. This is so important, and you're going a bit fast. right? So hold a minute now, because this is very important here. I'm writing. So you're saying that if they were to come to Barbados and given, if they have all the status that they're supposed to have, yeah, then they are and they work $25,000 and less. The big question is, are they entitled to the tax credit of 1,300?
Okay.
Will they be paying into the NIS? Because then it becomes, if they are subcontracted, then it becomes optional, is what you're saying, right?
Precisely.
So they
Precisely.
might not, they
Only,
might
only,
choose not
only where the person is working for government on a contractual basis that they will demand that the person pay contributions. But if the person is working with an entity, then they may not be concerned whether the person pay contributions or not, or if the person is self-employed.
to. Wow. So that means this is going to, instead of it enhancing the NIS and pension scheme, if we continue to hire contract workers, and these who are coming in the free movement, they come in and we continue the trend of hiring contract workers. What you're saying is that there's a big chance that they might not pay into the NIS, and that the ideal that the NIS would be enhanced, might not be. And furthermore, I have here in my notes, and I'm repeating it so that for the others, that we might not get any taxes from them if they work for 25,000 or less. In fact, we might have to give them a tax credit. I just, it's
Precisely.
not what you're saying. Okay, continue.
Precisely.
Continue.
Okay. Now, and that because um, a non-contributory pension is not an automatic right if you're a citizen of Barbados. Because if you were deemed to have been self-employed during your working life and did not pay contributions, then you're not entitled to a non-contributory pension. So, but we're looking now at a situation where you're looking at those persons who will know that they can pay at the minimum for 15 years to have the 750 contributions necessary to get a contributory pension. Now remember, they've paid in $1,200 a year in contributions. But if you multiply 254 by
Mm.
52, I don't have the calculation, but that could come to
I,
almost 13,000,
I work it out. Keep going.
right? You're looking at the amount now that an individual is drawing from the national insurance scheme in pensions per year at the minimum, but yet they're paying in $1,200 per year in contributions, and
Wow.
it's a massive disparity,
Okay, I'm
massive.
going to pause you again, and I'll give you back your
Certain.
time. But I think it's important because I don't want us to miss these things. You're saying that 254 would be what people would be receiving in pensions, right?
Correct.
Times 52 weeks in the year, so that's 13,208.
Thank you
However,
very much.
you're saying the minimum that the those who are contract workers or self-employed would pay is $1,200 per year. So
Precisely. They may
there is
only
a
pay 1,200. They
there
may
is a
only pay
huge
1,200.
there's a huge gap there, Mr. Strickland. So what?
Yes. They,
So what's going to happen to? So even without the people coming in from the free movement, the fund isn't seem like it would be in trouble, and then you're bringing in these other people to be able to pull from it. Oh my goodness, this is. Mm,
I don't want to add the fact that $1.3 billion was written off, because that is part. We must always hold that in the whole scheme of things, because that is what has helped tremendously to put national insurance scheme in the position it's in at present, and not recognizing the slide that existed from when we had the 8% pay cut. I must always go back there, because it wasn't just about government cutting this person's salary. It was a financial crisis whereby companies in Barbados merged and there was downsizing. For instance, Mutual and Life of Barbados became Sagicor.
Mhm.
But there was a lot of downsizing whereby two companies now subcontracting the accounting work, the audit work. We had a proliferation of gardening firms rather than landscape firms rather than gardeners. We had a proliferation of cleaning firms rather than hiring a maid. We had a proliferation of um, courier services rather than messengers. This is what has happened, and national insurance and government over the years did not recognize that we were moving a lot from employment to self-employment.
Mhm.
Legitimate, legitimate. But then we found that person started with governments lead subcontracting persons, making persons contract workers, when the truth and the fact, they should not be contract workers. Those persons are employed by government because they control those aspects of that person's work, and therefore the private sector has always followed the lead of government, and they have followed it and they have followed to the T. We're not even bringing the fact that so many contracts now in Barbados have gone and are going to companies whereby the Contractors and Builders Association of Barbados have spoken on 3 occasions. The most recent one, I think, last week, where they said that they're not getting any work
Mhm.
because a lot of the work is being done now by Perconco, big slab work. You have the Chinese here who have taken over a lot of the contracts and so forth. So the artisans in Barbados are not getting a lot of the work. You want to say if they are doing maybe the foundation work and that's all you want to say. So this subcontract work is this work in relation to contracts and so forth is damaging the national insurance scheme every day because many of them are not paying either contributions or they're paying at the minimum to guarantee that they're covered for pensions, not even benefits. Because if you have a benefit and it's calculated on $134 per week, which is the $1,200 per year, you're
Mhm.
you're you're not getting very much in benefits. Maybe $7, $8, $20, out of that when you take out the first thing. But persons are more concerned about pensions, so they're working towards making sure they have the required amount of earnings for pensions. So you're paying in $1,200, and then you can get $13,000 a year.
Mm. Wow, this is mind blowing, really. You still have a couple minutes there. If is there anything else you
Okay.
want to add, you want
Okay.
to review. If you want to review the salient points, I see Mr. Alvin Bob is coming in, and Mr. Murray, I know is ready to go. But I want to make sure that you just go over because we're dealing with numbers. You have to do this session again with some slides because
Okay.
I like that because it's numbers. But go ahead, sir.
Okay.
Repeat the salient points. What are the things
I'm
we
gonna
must
I'm
remember?
gonna repeat the salient points, but there's a point I want to raise tonight because every day I'm coming across public workers who are in receipt of a pension from the Treasury who do not recognize that they have to apply for their pension at national insurance themselves. So they're having the unpleasant surprise when they reach pensionable age 67, where the Treasury take them off the Treasury roll. Then they don't have to apply at national insurance because they thought it was automatic conversion, and then they're out of an income for almost 3 months. And therefore, I want persons that are out there who have friends and relatives who are public workers who are already retired. Help them to know that about 4 months before they reach pensionable age, apply to national insurance. So by the time they reach pensionable age, they will be in receipt of their pension from national insurance. They should be. Okay, now, but let's go back to the salient points. Now, one, if a person is working with an employer, the employer is expected to pay contributions And therefore, if the person is working for say $400 per week, national insurance is likely to be getting in at least $3,588 in contributions. Now, if that person is a contract worker for whatever reason, then the person, even though national insurance is the entity which determines whether a person is self-employed or not, but have not, and I repeat, have not stood its ground, it has allowed government to dictate to it who is self-employed from who isn't, then it means that those persons may not even have to pay any contributions, may not pay any contributions because they're working for a private entity or they're just self-employed. And therefore, 1 out of 8 self-employed people in Barbados were actually paying contributions in 2022. That was the actual report. So it means that if those persons now being told that they can pay $1,200 per year in contributions, which works out to $134 in earnings, compared that if they are working with someone, they're working for $400. The person may very well be working for more than $400 or is working for $400 as a self-employed person. They're going to only pay, they may very well only pay on $134 per week in earnings, which is the $1,200 in contributions per year. Okay, so National is receiving $1,200 as against they could have been receiving $3,588 per year in contributions. And this person now is going, once they pay 15 years in contributions, having paid in $1,200 per year in contributions, they're going to entitle to the $254 per week in pensions, which is the minimum contributory pension, which, as you indicated, is over $13,000 in pensions per year. And we have a very aging population, and we have a falling birth rate. So we have a lot less persons paying contributions, but we have an aging population. So therefore, it means that we are paying these pensions for a longer period of time, less contributions coming in because less persons are in the workforce, less persons are paying because they are self-employed. The National Fund is further being depleted slowly, and that's why I believe that they have set up the self-employed section to actively go after the other persons who are actually self-employed and not paying contributions. But I want those persons to know that if, even though you are a citizen of Barbados, a non-contributory pension is not an automatic right. So if you are self-employed and you choose not to pay contributions, when you reach pensionable age, all things being equal, you will not receive a pension in Barbados. So you will either have to depend on family members or welfare to survive, or continue working until you die. And that is what I would want to share with the listeners tonight, because national insurance is very much their lifeline, and they've got to put something in there in order to benefit.